Hi, welcome to this episode of Digital Discoveries. We're talking about the SAMR model. The SAMR model is for our teachers, and it's a discussion about how to integrate technology into the classroom. If you want to equate it with something that you're familiar with, the SAMR model, if you equated it with Bloom's taxonomy, for instance. S would be the lowest level of Bloom's in our integration technology model, and then redefinition would be the highest level of integration if you were using that pyramid for Bloom's taxonomy. So we have covered substitution, augmentation, and modification, and today we're going to be talking about redefinition. Redefinition is the highest level of technology integration in a classroom, and this is what we hope all our teachers strive to get to. We hope that you're striving to get toward redefining how your classes are taught and how your lessons are presented and how the students' work is given back to you. You're completely redefining it. So when we talk about redefinition in our SAMR model, so essentially what we're saying with the highest level of the SAMR model in redefinition is simply this. The assignment, whatever the assignment is that you've given to your students, could not have been completed without the use of technology. They have to do something with technology in order to complete that assignment. That's the highest level of technology integration, is that the whole assignment is something that has to do with technology. Now, again, as we spoke of earlier, a lot of people say, well, yeah, this is nice, Tim, you're telling us, you know, we need to integrate technology, we know how to do that, but it takes a lot of time and we simply don't have time in the class. My kind of pushback on that is that the assignments take up the same amount of time. Once you've planned for it, just like you plan for any other lesson, once you've planned for it and you've lined up all of your materials that are necessary for it, the assignment takes just the same amount of time. The students understand how the technology works. You show them, you model it for them maybe, and they take off with it. Perhaps it won't work the very first time you try it, but you know what? Every lesson that you've tried probably wasn't perfect the first time you did it. It takes practice, it takes work, and so using technology is no different. You have to go in there and you have to use it. It's like riding a bicycle. The more you ride it, the easier it gets. And so the same thing with using technology, especially when you're up at the R level, the redefinition level of your assignments. So I want to show you something that happened here in EPISD where an assignment was completely redefined by using technology. We're going to look at a class at Silva Magnet School, and they're actually collaborating with students at Cooley Elementary School. And I'm just going to let this video kind of speak for itself, but keep in mind that this lesson here that's going on is completely in the R section of our SAMR model. They could not have done this without technology. Let's take a look.
Today, what we're doing is a collaboration between Clardy and Silva in order to use media to help build knowledge and to increase retention of that knowledge within students.
The particular objective for today is that the Clardy students will be showcasing their learning through their interactive notebook, which they've been adding to throughout the course of the semester. On the opposite end, Silva Magnet will go ahead and be showcasing and explaining to us their final project of the semester.
I thought it was actually nice to interact with somebody else from like a different school, like from an high school, but I learned like what they did, so I'm ready. Like it made me actually want to go to Silva Magnet. You don't get this opportunity sometimes.
The importance of collaboration is stemming from entering the 21st century. And we are finding that collaboration between groups is becoming increasingly more important. People now more than ever are communicating worldwide without leaving their home or place of work.
I have like Skype at home, but to use to my family members, but now you think of it, oh, you can talk to people like in another part of the country and that you didn't even know about. Then maybe one day they'll be over here and then you'll actually get to see them in real life.
If we can connect with them and have the children understand that what they're learning here as a foundation in 5th grade is going to help them in their college and career readiness, and know that what the high school children are learning is very impactful in the future, then they have a reason to buy into science.
I think collaboration is good for many reasons. Not only do the younger generations get to explore what to expect and what we're working on, so they can actually have an idea of what they're getting themselves into when they do come to high school. They have that expectation, that goal to meet.
I think it was pretty fun and cool because I got to meet people from the civil magnet school.
College and career readiness starts at the elementary school. This is where we begin to set our dreams. I'm a product of Clardy Elementary. I had my dreams. Who would envision that I would be sitting at that chair at Clardy Elementary? But it starts with a dream and teachers believing in us and moving forward with our dream.
So you get the idea that that particular lesson where the high school students were video conferencing with the elementary school students simply could not have happened without technology being in place for that lesson. And so that's completely redefining how the students interact with each other. They're doing collaboration, they're doing communication, they're doing a lot of those 21st century skills that are required of our students for the 21st century workforce. And so that's a really good example of how that's happening. So I want to look at some examples, and in the past with our SAMR model, I've kind of shown you the analog version of a lesson, and then I showed you, well, here's how it would look, or here's how a sample of how it would look as a digital lesson. But what I want to do here is I'm going to show you some lessons, and I'm going to show you some modified, redefined lessons, but I'm going to use video to show you, because you simply cannot understand how to redefine a lesson until you actually see how teachers are doing this everywhere. And so probably for the next few minutes we're going to be seeing quite a few little movies, they're very short, about how entire lessons are redefined using technology. And I want you to think about this. Think about this from the student's perspective. When you see all of these videos coming up, think about, if you're the student, which lesson would you remember the most? Which lesson were you going to remember a year from now? Which lesson are they going to come back after they've graduated and say to you, you know, I remember doing this in your class? That's the kind of long-term learning that we're striving for in education. We want our students to learn things that'll stick with them for a long period of time. And those things that require students to be creative, that require students to communicate with each other, those are the things that end up being long-term neuron connections up in their brains. So I want to look at this. This is a typical habitat study in 1st grade. Here's where students they learned about habitats in a class. I think they read some kind of book, and then they had to draw a picture of the habitats. And so that's very, very common throughout the U.S., as a matter of fact, habitat studies. So they learned about forests, they learned about deserts, they learned about all the oceans, they learned about all these different habitats. So now I want to show you the exact same kind of topic, habitat study, in a 1st grade class, but here's where it is completely modified for technology. And so this is a habitat study using technology.
If you're at Computer Center, you're going to finish your PowerPoint by adding pictures to your words. Riley,
these are kindergarten students. In the classroom, we are reviewing endangered animals, and what we do is we go through centers, and the children have made a project with the endangered animals, and they're taking them into the classroom and creating PowerPoints for each of their individual animals. We're also discussing the habitat, environment, weather, vocabulary word, describing what it means, and giving examples of each word. As they work through this, they each do their own taping. They also will go in and edit their film and make sure it's what they need. They will put it into Windows Movie Maker, and they will create their own little vocabulary so it's contextual for them and they can understand what the words mean. With the technology, the students really understand what they're doing. They have ownership of what they're doing. They enjoy it. It's entertaining and fun as well as educational. and they just keep working on it, and they have more excitement about what they're doing, and they have better remembrance of what they have, and they retain that information.
The place where an animal lives.
So, looking at that video, which one of those first graders do you think will remember that lesson in second grade and remember that lesson in third grade? And when that test comes around, that science test comes around in fifth grade, what are they going to remember? They're going to remember that lesson because they were involved so much in creating content that can actually stay with them. One of the neat things about doing that type of lesson is that the content can stay with them for years and years and years. It's not just something that you put up on a wall and take it down at the end of the year and send it home and hopefully it stays with them. But you know, they can start creating their online portfolios using anything that they create electronically. Here's a typical it's hard to see because there's so many words in it, but this is a book report on Tom Sawyer. This is a middle school book report on Tom Sawyer. So you could tell that this student we did some substitution here for this assignment where the student typed it up on a word processor probably instead of handwriting it. And so we had this very nice one-page The Adventures of Tom Sawyer book report. So you're a student. Think about this book report. Are you going to remember what the teacher wanted to teach in that assignment by doing that kind of assignment? Is a student next year going to remember the things they wrote in that Tom Sawyer book report? Or if we modify and we redefine our lessons, are we going to remember something that looks like this? So I want to show you what a Tom Sawyer book report looks like using a completely redefined way of doing this lesson.
6 seconds. Pause.
These students are 8th graders and they're in an 8th grade technology class. They are making videos on the book Tom Sawyer, which is a collaboration between the technology class and the language arts literature class. They came to me with the idea for this project because they were originally going to write an essay on the characters of Tom Sawyer and focus on the elements of characterization. And they decided that it would be a lot more fun and a lot more educational for them to make a video on this topic because they wanted to actually prove that they were able to visualize the characters in their head and really create the characters using video.
In closer, about to kiss. Perfect.
Prior to this project, the 8th grade students had very limited experience in film. They had never had experience with costume design or scenery, location scouting, or any of that. When we began this project, they actually wrote the scripts, and as they were writing, they actually had to write all of the action cues, and they had to come up with props and costumes that would really enhance their scene. Some of them ended up doing research on Tom Sawyer. They also used what they found online and what they pictured as they were reading to create the scenes, the locations, costumes, and everything that they filmed.
Better.
When we watched the finished videos that we made during this project, the students were actually able to see what really happened in the book, what was their own interpretation, how different students interpreted the same scene in different ways. And all of these are things that they definitely wouldn't have been able to verbally explain or write in an essay. So the technology was definitely used to help them show their understanding of the book Tom Sawyer.
So you look at an assignment like that and you say to yourself, man, that took a lot of planning to do. And it does, it does. It does take a lot of planning to get all that in place in order to figure out who goes where and what's going to happen. But it's just like any lesson, is that once you've done it, the second time you do it, it's easier. The third time you do it, it's even easier. But the experience for the students, every time they do it, it's new. If a student's asked to write a book report, and I know I'm picking on book reports, but it's just typical. If students asked to do a book report, you know what? They've done a book report before in previous years, in previous classes. They've done that. They've been there, they've done that, and that's where we kind of lose them. If they're doing this type of activity where they're being creative, where they're being problem solvers, and they're creating that content then you've got some long-term learning that sticks in brains. Let's look at some others. Here's a pretty up-to-date one. This is where we're talking about current events. Now, there's current event topics all over our district where teachers are talking about what's happening in the news. But what happens if we use technology in the classroom to talk about current events? Let's take a look at this one.
Inspiration is a concept mapping.
Okay, this is International Relations Honors, and it's 9 through 12. What we did today was I introduced some concept mapping software called Inspiration. I modeled how to use it using current event and problems and solutions. We created facts. We discussed problems regarding those facts, and we came up with solutions to address how to predict what's going to happen with the problem itself. The topic we worked on today was the very timely matter of Iran's nuclear weapons program, on whether or not it's for nuclear energy or for its nuclear weapons, and what would happen as a result. What can we predict is going to happen in the near future.
What other reason do we believe that they might use nuclear weapons?
One of their priorities was to destroy Israel.
Okay.
Now they're taking their textbooks and the readings that they have supposed to have done over the past week on basic theories of international relations, mainly liberalism and realism, neoliberalism and neorealism, so they'll be able to use a concept map to define what the different topics are, the different theories within those topics. And then I'm going to ask them at a later point to create Venn diagrams to discuss neorealism versus realism and neoliberalism versus liberalism. I find that when I have done lessons with Inspiration in the past, where I've used it as a note-taking tool, their scores on quizzes and essay tests just remarkably go through the roof, because not only are they learning the material, they're learning how to organize it within their own mind.
So you can see again that students are going to be completely engaged in that type of learning. Here's one on environmental study. And you might be asking yourselves, well, where are all these videos coming from? That's certainly not my district. Where's that all happening? These videos are actually coming from the state of Florida. The state of Florida has something called a Technology Integration Matrix. And I love the acronym because it's TIM. And so if you go up online and you search for a TIMS, T-I-M, Technology Integration Matrix, state of Florida, you're going to go to a website that's got all these videos. It shows you how to integrate technology at all these different levels. It's a little bit, they don't use the exact same wording as SAMR, but I think once you see it, you'll understand where the substitution level is, where the augmentation level is, where the modification is. Okay, let's look at, well, I think this is the last one. This is an environmental study that students had to do. Now think about this again. You're sitting in a classroom and you're learning about the environment, or you're actually out in the environment learning about the environment. Let's take a look.
Today we've taken a field trip out to an environmental education center, and we have groups from 6th grade all the way through 11th grade with us today. The educational center that we're at is located on a quarry mining site, actually a crushed stone site, limestone, and the owners of the company were asked to remediate or mitigate part of their property back to kind of how it was before they began mining. And so the plan was to come out to the remediation site or the mitigation area and take GPS units and map a boundary around the outside of the mitigation area. Depending on the area they were at, did they need to take a picture and a waypoint, or were they going to take a temperature, water temperature, test the pH? There was actually an area around the mitigation site that looked like maybe it was a hog pit, and it had some debris in it, so it was interesting to test the pH of that water area versus the water of the mitigation area. A lot of times you think that technology is a very sedentary application. Either you're behind a computer and you're manipulating data, or getting stuff from the internet like that. And today we wanted to show kids that you can actually take technology out in the field.
If you can actually go out into a field and do that work yourself, it's so more involved, and I mean, I can see everything that they do and actually do it myself.
The active learning that the kids were doing out here today would absolutely not be possible if they were just sitting in the classroom. To see the connections made between the classroom and the real world today, using the technology, using the probes, see how the technology will actually pay off in the end is something that could never be obtained just by being in the classroom.
At the redefinition level, you simply cannot do the assignment without the technology. Looking back at that environmental study right there that the students were doing, look at all the probes they had. They had GPS, the Global Positioning Satellite System software, the little handheld things. They had digital cameras for taking pictures of footprints and all the things that they were finding. They had science probes for sticking in the water and getting the pH and the dissolved oxygen kind of things. So at the redefinition level, the assignment is completely transformed from what the original assignment was. And so that's where you want to go as a teacher. That's where you want to go. That's where we want to go. We want to completely redefine our assignments involving technology. That's the highest level of technology in our SAMR model. Remember that without technology in the redefinition level, the assignment simply cannot be done. And that environmental study is a great example. They simply could not have done that without the use of technology. So that's our SAMR model: substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. Those are our 4 levels. Remember, at substitution and augmentation, those are enhancing the levels, where we're just basically taking the same assignment and we're doing a little bit more with technology, but not a lot. Where we want to go is the modification and redefinition level. That's the area where transformation takes place. That's where the students really start to kick in. That's where the technology kicks in, and that's where we want our students to be headed. If you need help and you've got a lesson and you're like, I just simply don't know how to get up to that M or R level in the SAMR model, give our department a call. We have people that are willing to come out and show you exactly how you can move to modification and redefinition, where your students can be creating content, communicating, using 21st century skills. That's all part of that SAMR model. We want them to go to M. We want them to go to R. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this 5-part series that we did on the SAMR model, and we'll see you next time on Digital Discoveries.